Everybody. My name's David. This is Shuda. We're here today bringing you the first of six podcasts about the topic of hemp. I say we, this Transition Town of Greater Media is the organization that is sponsoring these podcasts, and it was made possible through a grant from the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. So we started this little hemp study group to kind of learn some things about hemp, maybe break down the stigmas and show a whole bunch of different ways that the hemp plant can be used. They said like 50,000 different ways could be used, and honestly, I think there is about 50,000 different ways just of what we know of now. So, as a result of our efforts, our getting together and everything, we received this grant, and part of it was to develop a podcast series that could introduce people into the world of hemp and some of the things that are available through this wonderful, wonderful resource. It's a wonderful plant, and we have lots to talk about. But at this point, I'd like to introduce my friend Skip Shuda, who is the president of Transition Town of Greater Media. I just kind of want to hear a little bit about you and a little bit about what Transition Town Media is.
Yeah, sounds great, David. Thanks for having me out. I'm really excited about getting started with the podcast series. So, in terms of my background, I've recently retired from industry, where I was a tech entrepreneur for the last 5 or 6 years. I had been a cannabis entrepreneur as well, and I still do have some investments in that space. This is my second year, though, as president of Transition Town Media. So I retired from industry and picked up working in the nonprofit world with Transition Town Media. And I'm a member of the Mothership Group. And really what I wanted to do today was try to help explain the bridge between TTM and the Hemp Study Group. So
what is the bridge? I know Transition Town Media, to be all about biodiversity and sustainability, and so where does hemp fit in all of that?
Well, I should mention, maybe give people a little bit of background on transition towns in general. The transition town movement started back in 2005, and it was grounded in permaculture, and really was a response to the fact that the planet is going through a climate crisis. So a group of people got together in media back in 2009, and they started the first transition town in Pennsylvania as Transition Town Media. Now we call it Transition Town Greater Media, because we really encompass all of the communities surrounding the borough of Media, which is the county seat of Delaware County in Pennsylvania. Transition Town in general was started by a guy named Rob Hopkins. And in terms of our environment, we have community members, residents from, like I said, Media, Aston, Middletown, Drexel Hill, Chester, so the whole really southern Delaware County area is sort of engaged with a lot of the work, and we have dozens of people working on a lot of different initiatives. So that's sort of a little background on Transition Town. You want me to talk a little bit more about?
No, it's just interesting to see that you're much broader reaching than just media. I guess that's where that greater media kind of comes in. And for me personally, I live in Drexel Hill. We're coming to you right now from the Hemp Study Group Central. It's in Drexel Hill, but I got a lot of friends in media, and I spent some time over there. So it's what started in media, and some of the concepts, some philosophies. I think the ultimate goal was to get it to spread further. So I think it's proof that that's happening. So
for sure,
wonderful stuff. So
for sure.
Should
we talk a little bit about some of the initiatives?
So tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit about some of other than hemp. What are some of the other initiatives that Transition Town is involved in?
Well, like I said, it really got started out of this response to the climate crisis. With a permaculture background, which really looks at earth care, people care, and fair share. Those are sort of three of the principles in
what was that again?
Permaculture. Earth care. So really taking care of nature and the world, the ecosystem around us. people care, making sure that people have what they need, that people are cared for, and that they're supported, well supported, and fair share, so that things are really being distributed, and we have limited resources on this in this planet, so that things are being distributed equitably, and that people are being treated fairly. And a lot of the things that we do in Transition Town Media have to do with, I like to say, sustainability, resilience, and localization. That's kind of the three buckets that we look at when we consider projects for Transition Town. But some of the things that have been going on recently, we have the biodiversity initiative, which is really taken off in the last couple of years. This year, big focus on trying to reduce the use of pesticides in our yards. A lot of people are doing mosquito spraying. They don't realize that there are natural alternatives to that.
What are some of those natural alternatives? I've heard of these things called dunks or something.
Yeah, dunks. Yeah, so the dunks you can put into a bucket with some grass, and you create sort of like an ideal condition for mosquitoes to breed. And then the dunks actually interfere with the reproductive process, so it kills the larvae of the mosquito early on. So it's a very effective way to actually eliminate just the mosquitoes, as opposed to pesticides, which kill all kinds of beneficial insects and pollinators and birds and animals and right up the food chain. We also have on more of a grassroots, we have a foraging and fire circle where, I like to think of it as we're trying to increase the mycelia of the community and really spread the roots between individuals and our connections with nature.
Let me stop you there. I had the opportunity to go on my first foraging trip through Transition Town Media, and basically the way the foraging works is there's this one guy who kind of heads it all up, and when he feels like calling people and coming out to the woods, he sends out a text, right? So we go out one day to Smedley Park, I believe it was, right? And we were in search of the elusive morel mushroom. Morel mushroom, yes.
Yeah.
So again, I've never done any of this. This is all quite new to me, a lot of this Transition Town stuff. And, about a half an hour into it, well, actually about 10 minutes into it, somebody finds one. And now I'm sparked. Now I'm like, I got to find one of these things. And I am literally looking. I don't even know what I'm looking for until we found the first one. They just told me it was a morel mushroom.
Yeah.
So next thing you know, I find one. And it was like I caught the biggest fish when I caught, oh my God, I got one. Anyway, it was really, really exciting. It was very interesting because we had been learning about the mycelium network and different things about, mushrooms as medicines and, therapeutics and stuff. So I got a chance on my first foraging trip to get a morel mushroom. We came home and we sauteed them up in garlic and everything.
I remember they were delicious.
And had a wonderful meal, But I think, what I really learned is that, there is a way for people to survive, and it's, more about educating ourselves on, some of the things that nature has to offer that, can help us.
It can be right under your nose in your own yard as well. So, that's a great example of the kinds of things that we do. But, it's really varied. I mean, I think we have over 18 initiatives going on right now. So, we talk about some economic initiatives. Also, we have the Circle of Aunts and Uncles, where we work with under-resourced businesses and entrepreneurs, give them the support and low-interest loans so they can get their business to the next level. We're actually benefiting from that today. Our friend JP is helping to produce this podcast from CMP Radio. And
yes, thank you, from
one of the
CMP
members of
Radio.
That group. Yeah.
The voice, right?
So, we have a zero waste group. We have the FreeStore.
FreeStore. Tell me more about the FreeStore. What is the FreeStore?
FreeStore is one of the best known things. A lot of times people have never heard of Transition Town Media, but they've heard of the FreeStore, and they're like, "Oh, you guys are involved with the FreeStore?" And it's like, yeah, that's one of our initiatives. Started about 9 years ago. We have dozens of volunteers who go in there, and the idea is to keep things out of the waste stream. That's really why we started it. So rather than people throwing things into the landfill and putting stuff, an old lamp or some plates or something you're not using anymore, don't throw them out. Take them in and make them available to other people who might have a need for them. And, we have found that there's this free economy that's sort of sprung up around the free store, and people can bring in contributions and people can come in and shop for free. Everything's free. The 5-finger discount is welcome there, all of that.
So when do people, where is this free store located?
So the free store is on State Street in Media,
Okay.
Down on the western end of State Street, and you can get the hours on the website in terms of which days they're actually open for donations.
And that's
contributions.
www.transitiontownmedia.com or.
So yeah, we're going through a little bit of a website redesign right now, but yeah, it's a www.transitiontownmedia.org. I think.
Okay. So
Pretty sure that's right.
So that's pretty cool. I have had a chance to visit the free store, and one of the things I don't have it with me right now, but it's a 100-year-old notebook from the president of the Board of Education, who apparently lived in Media. So there must have been a clean out or something in this 100-year-old book, which I'm being told may actually be hemp paper. It came my way, and it was quite an inspiration. So I always have that bit of the free store to help drive me with, our Hemp Study Group too. So
Yeah.
what else? Anything else you'd like to mention?
Well,
or?
I mean, I think that's, what we do is every year we get together, people come together and bring their ideas to the table. What kind of organizations or groups would they like to see start up in Transition Town? And we do a little bit of a conversation and a voting process, and that's how the Hemp Study Group got started. So, you and I were talking about it, and you had an interest in the hemp plant, and I suggested, hey, why don't we start a hemp study group? And we talked about that, and we got some other people involved who were interested, and we were sort of off to the races then. So,
and here we are.
Here we are.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting story how the Hemp Study Group came to be. I'm gonna, I guess, dive a little bit into my personal journey at this point with the hemp plant. And,
Sure.
If that's okay, but for over a decade, I've used cannabis in various ways, mostly medicinal, somewhat recreational. Someone abused them, someone didn't. I've learned a lot of things about cannabis plant over the years, and it really has given me a sense of meaning and purpose in my life. And here in Pennsylvania, it's really difficult to have that because of some of the legal statutes and some of the stigma that revolves around the plant. So kind of came to a crossroads in my life a couple of years ago where I just was ready. I was ready to move across country, go to a place where this was different and it was seen different. There were more opportunities. There were places I could go and be creative with the plant and have a social engagement with the plant and utilize the medication therapeutically in a way that I felt it needed to be from my own journey. Moving across country was not that easy of a task, and I've been in this area all my life, and there's lots of roots and lots of different things. So, it just wasn't in the cards. So I had to take a different approach, and this opportunity of hemp came up, and it's a different way to look at the plant. I got a chance to almost break the stigma a little bit and look at different ways that this plant can be a resource for us, and it kind of changed my approach in how I even utilize the medication. I just felt like the more aware of how useful this plant could be, the more beneficial it's going to be for me. It was more of a marriage between the plant, and I kind of committed myself to the plant and said, all right, well, a lot of people don't want to hear about smoking weed and pot as a drug and things like that, but do people know that this stalk can be made into clothes. It can be made into food. It can be made into concrete. It can be made into oils. There's so many things that once I took the approach of, okay, I'm not gonna be able to set up a bed and breakfast here at my house, but what I could do is I could set up a little study group that we meet once a month or something, get together and kind of take a creative approach into learning about the plant. I think our first meeting was we made pizzas.
Yes.
So, it was kind of cool, right? We made hemp pizza. So,
well, it's funny. I mean, when I first thought about, sort of going back and thinking about, well, what is hemp? and what do we do with it? I was just thinking it was sort of like canvas or something, burlap. And that was really my vision of what hemp was. And, here we are, you're decked out in hemp clothing. I have this really comfortable shirt on that is made from hemp. And, I guess we should also probably define hemp for people so they realize. So hemp is is a strain of, refers to a strain of the cannabis plant that has less than 0.3% THC. And that's really a definition that the federal government has dictated to say that there's not enough of a psychoactive THC, which is the intoxicant in cannabis. When people think about marijuana, that's typically THC is the intoxicating component of that. So hemp has less than 0.3%. So it's a very small amount or none at all. But there are just, as you said, thousands of uses of the hemp plant.
Yeah, I think it's very important. In 2018, we had the Farm Bill of 2018, and
Right.
and hemp was basically brought into the forefront, and we gave them a legal avenue to grow hemp. But to be defined as hemp, it needed to be less than 0.3% THC, which is tetrahydrocannabinol, delta 9. So that was
You're a braver guy than me.
that was the compound that was discovered sometime in the late 1960s by Raphael McCallum, I believe his name was.
Mechoulam,
Mechoulam.
in Israel.
An Israeli scientist. But that is what's going to get you high. That's what people think of. The reefer madness kind of propaganda that was out there. It's going to get you high and all this kind of things. If you take that out, hemp is extremely, extremely nutritional as far as us consuming it from just a protein standpoint. So it was kind of the thing about the pizzas is we wanted to make a vegan pizza that didn't necessarily have to have meat on it, but could still give us the protein value. So what we did is we substitute some of the flour for this hemp protein powder mix that, lo and behold, can be found at Acme and ShopRite and Giant. And these are the types of things that by bringing awareness to the plant, I started to look differently. I started to look at different places. Oh my God, look, they have hemp here. And through the community of Transition Town, we formed this group, and we'd meet every week or every month or so, and do something different. But we had a great time making the pizzas and engaging with the plant and learning that 3 tablespoons of this would give us 10 grams of protein, and that protein's in the right mix of omega fatty 3 and 6 acids or whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. Not a scientist. I've learned a little bit about this, and I think that's something that I think we really should say is I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor or anything. And I don't think you really are either.
No, I'm not.
So a lot of what we're saying is based on our own individual research and experience and things like that.
Yeah.
So we're speaking as individuals, not so much as a as a broader audience, but it's kind of with this plant it's been pushed back and kind of eradicated, so there isn't research out. So I think what we're doing by having conversations like that is bringing it back into the forefront so that we can learn more.
Yeah,
there's so much more to learn. There's it's not just a food or a food source for us, but there's talks of it being a food source for animals and livestock and things like that. So there's so much, I think, to be learned from what we're doing as a group.
Well, and I think to me, I think the Hemp Study Group's a great example of how Transition Town movement can really engage the community. We've had a lot of different people come through and join some of the various Hemp Study Group meetings. So we've built new friendships. We've done art projects. We've gone on field trips. We had a year-end party, which turned out to be the Transition Town Media year-end party. And I think that cross connection that's happening while we study and learn more about this plant also helps our community resilience, and we learn more about how this plant provides a resilient product base too for building materials, for food sources, for medicinal purposes, for cosmetics. I mean, I know you're gonna, I look at the backdrop behind us. It's just staggering the number of things that can be done with the hemp byproducts.
Yes.
So
as a segue, we
about
are going to
that.
mention the backdrop. We're going to have multiple episodes to this podcast series, and our next episode will be with me and my beautiful wife Deanna, and we're going to go through a lot of these products. So sit tight. We're going to talk a little bit more about what we did as the Hemp Study Group, but in episodes to follow, we're going to talk more about what's going on behind us, and I think you're going to be amazed at just what's out there, what's available, and for us it was about we're going to sit here and talk about this, but we kind of had to put our actions where our words were and our money where our mouth was, and go and buy some of the stuff and play with it and see what it's really all about. So
we think about what we have coming up this year. We have this podcast series that we're working on. I know we have a hemp tablecloth for TTM that's also being constructed as we speak, right?
Yeah. So a little bit about that is we have these promotional events, craft fairs or this or that, or different awareness events.
Green
throughout.
Sunday
Green
for
Sunday,
local artisans come into the community.
Just throughout the year we have these events where we have a promotional table where we talk about all the things going on. So we decided that after forming some partnerships through some of our other ventures, we found a hemp fabric maker in Pennsylvania, Tuscarora Mills, and they sold us some fabric that we're going to make a table covering for our promotional table, and all of the marketing materials. We're going to make some displayers that are made out of hemp wood. So again, taking that concept of let's put our money where our mouth is, and we have this concept at the table. Let's show the people what can be made. Let's have them feel, touch, have hemp really come to life in a different kind of way. It's not all about monsters, aliens with bloodshot eyes. It's about farms of enriched soil that have been regenerated through the growth of the hemp plant. It's about carbon sequestration. It's about utilizing textile hemp grown for textiles in ways that are going to stay in use for thousands of years or hundreds of years, so that we can sequester that carbon. I know you talked about in the very beginning about how climate change and things like that are a staple to what TTM is all about, and I think hemp provides an element of carbon sequestration. They call it a carbon negative plant. I have a lot more studying to do on this, and I think you do as well.
Yes,
and I think we're
still
going to
learning.
have a conversation about that. But by utilizing these things and getting them created, we're making small impacts at this point.
Yeah.
And that promotional table, I think it's going to be great. I think it's going to be a way to show people what hemp is,
Sure.
outside of a pot leaf or something.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I'm hoping before we wrap this segment, we can touch base on the hemp pallet house.
Oh, the hemp
that we're
pallet
talking
house.
about.
Do we want to get into the hemp pallet house, or do we want to talk any more about the podcast here before we get
Well,
into that?
I mean, to me, it was just, one of the things that comes out of this is we all get to realize a little bit of our aspirations, continue our own personal journeys. And I'm looking forward to building this cabin in the woods, which is something that I've always thought about. And we've conspired to talk about how we could build it out of hemp and create it out of, and then also reuse old pallets. So, we were able to get some pallets from, Sterling Pig provided us with some pallets, and, it was a local restaurant in the media area, and we're going to be really stuffing those with Hempcrete. I know we'll probably go into more in a future podcast about using Hempcrete as a construction material, right?
Yes, absolutely.
But I'm super excited about doing that. We're recruiting volunteers now. We're going to need a lot of, elbow grease and muscle to make that happen. But hopefully by the end of this summer, we'll have a house out in the woods that we can go visit and get off the grid. made of hemp.
When when you talk about concretizing your dreams or concretizing your plans, I think
Yeah.
this is one of those things where if we can pull this off, this it's an off-grid cabin. It's some may call it a bum shanty. I've heard that being said, but you know
Yes.
what it is? It's an exercise in sustainability. It's an exercise in what are the fruits of the earth that have given us. How do we utilize them to maintain? I think some of that people care.
Yeah.
What are some of the things the earth can provide us if we earth care and take care of it? What can it provide us? And Hempcrete, which is basically hemp stalks like this broken down, the interior of this broken down into small particles. We add lime and water to it and it creates a hardened substance. That hardened substance is comparable to some of the best insulators that we have out there. An amazing thing about it is it's antimicrobial, so no mold or mildew or anything can grow on it. And we talked about it being carbon sequesterer. You think about how much carbon is sequestered in this shirt, but if we had, a 5,000-foot structure that's built out of 1 foot thick hempcrete walls, think about the scale of that.
Yeah, there's a lot of
and there's a
lot
lot
of carbon that's locked up in that hemp.
Correct.
So taking it out of the atmosphere and helping the environment.
I think one of the things as we got together for this this podcast, I was reflecting on was, how do I fit into transition town, and what does it mean to me? And I think what I'm finding is like it's that social aspect that I was searching out in Colorado at a consumption lounge and things like that. I'm getting in a very different way here. Yes, it's a bunch of boomers, in media that not normally, was my crowd, but I've learned to, just experiment with different things and different people and different cultures and walks of life and see what I can learn from it. And what I've learned is there's a lot of commonalities. There's common things, albeit we have differences. This Hemp Study Group has really, shined a light on something that we have in common. And it's not all about, we don't get together and smoke pot and things like that. We get together and we take hemp cord and braid it together, like a rope, so that we can learn the ancient wisdom of the indigenous people in braiding sweetgrass. And that was a social encounter for me. That was a learning and enriching thing in my life that, I got to spend time with some indigenous people and some farmers and, some people that had different backgrounds and things like that and could add perspective to, what we were actually doing with the braiding of this and the ceremony of it and things like that. So, hemp has just been the core of that. I mean, and it's, again, not always about it's intoxicating at all. It's just simply by engaging and being open and free to talk about it in a way that, I don't feel, stigmatized or anything like that. It's been wonderful, and I am greatly appreciative of all my new friends here at TTM. So, hopefully.
As are we. Yeah. I mean, David, I just, in thinking about that, hemp comes from the earth, right? It grows up from the ground. And when we think about climate change and the idea that, a lot of people will think, oh, well, that's something that, governments and the international community has to solve. But the reality is we can all start making impacts on climate right here in our own neighborhoods. And, a lot of what Transition Town is really about is this bottom-up approach to solving problems that might seem insurmountable, but we take little steps by having a hemp study group or learning how to use the hemp plant. And lo and behold, all of a sudden there's more of a demand for hemp, and we're growing more hemp. And this is a healing plant in so many different ways. So I see there are a lot of parallels between the Hemp Study Group, the hemp plant, and Transition Town in terms of trying to really make the world. It just might be a way to save our planet.
Yeah. I truly believe there was a phrase that came up somewhere along the way. I think it's Tikkun Olam, and it means it's Hebrew for heal the world, the fractures and things like that. And, so many times, I probably way oversimplify it, and I think hemp can solve everything. Maybe it can, but I'm finding that there's more and more things that it can be useful for, and it can, help be a unifier in some case. And this world of industrial hemp versus adult use cannabis. Again, I think we need to focus on our commonalities, and the commonalities is that it is a healing plant, whether it's healing the body or healing the earth. It is a healing plant,
Yeah.
and we need to come together on this and become unified, because once we really start getting into this, and laws start to change and things, I think we're going to have to start looking at some of the social equity issues and some of the social justice issues
For sure.
that have arose from what we have done with the plant over the last 100
prohibition.
years.
Yeah.
And we've criminalized a lot of things. We've ruined a lot of lives. We've done a lot of damage. And like, how do we set the course straight again?
Restore the balance.
What are we going to do? So, it's probably a much bigger question than either one of us can answer right here.
Yep.
But it's certainly something that sticks in my mind. It's certainly something that needs to be part of the conversation.
Yeah.
As we go forward.
For sure. So what do you have coming down the pike?
So what do we have coming down the pike? So again, we've got some more. We have some more episodes coming up, and one of them is going to be a product showcase. We're going to talk a little bit about some hemp-derived cannabinoids, and what you can buy in stores. More of an educational thing than anything. Again, we're not here promoting any products, but we are going to try and give you a little bit of education, some basic education, and something a little bit, more progressive, so that, even if you're not a cannabis user, you have a child or something, you see this stuff laying around, what's going on. And again, this is really just about awareness. We received this grant from the Department of Agriculture, the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, and the whole gist was we're supposed to promote it, and we're supposed to bring awareness, and we're supposed to, help drive the business. And, so these podcasts, these webcasts, that's really our way to go about doing that. Building this hemp pallet house is probably going to be the next 6 to 8 months of our lives, at least, just to get some basic structure together. It is happening partly here in Drexel Hill. We're going to be prefabricating these wall panels, and then we will transport them up to Schuylkill County and assemble it. So, part of it is, again, this is a hemp study group, so it's all based in learning. It's not necessarily academic. It's experiential learning. It's a creative approach. It's a hands-on. Let's play with it. We're not necessarily engineers, but we reached out to an architect, and she's going to develop an engineer, an architectural drawing for us, so that puts a little bit
great.
more legitimacy to this. And we've got a volunteer who's a master woods crafter, so that kind of stuff helps. We have some planners. We have people that are willing to just do whatever is necessary, and a lot of that work's going to just be stuffing pallets full of hempcrete, pounding it down, stuffing it in this pallet, and making basically hemp sandwiches that we're gonna take up to Barnesville and put together, and hopefully keep us free from insects and bears and all that kind of stuff, and provide a nice warm cabin in the winter, and hopefully nice and cool in the summer. I think the idea of the hemp cabin building, I've seen it in my search for hemp products in Nepal. I think Himalayan hemp. They did some of this kind of stuff in other countries, and it's not because they want to; it's because they have to. And who knows? We may get to a place in time where we do need to do these kinds of things.
Could be a very useful skill to have, and
could be,
and a useful product to build with.
And then we have the promotional table, which I'm going to take a ride to a friend of ours that is the wood shop guy, and run some of this hemp wood through some machines to make displayers for our marketing materials, so that again, we're not out there preaching against plastic and putting plastic on the table. So every little bit helps, and that's kind of some of the things we looked at as an organization. So how can we better promote what we're trying to what the message is? Is that it's these little things that, if we all do a little thing here or there, if we all bought hemp underwear this go round instead of, cotton Fruit of the Looms, who knows, That's kind of what I did, and that's kind of what the next episode's about. It's going to be about.
You're a couple steps ahead of me, so I got the shirt, but
yeah.
gotta get the rest of the gear.
Interesting thing about, something that came up, I think Skip got a little inspired, all this hemp stuff I was buying. He plays this drum that he made, and it's a heartbeat drum, and boom, 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 boom. So he reached out because he wanted a drum case, right? Made out of hemp. So tell us about that.
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful drum case that I found on Etsy. I was specifically looking for, hemp fabric, and it's I think it actually was manufactured in Europe. I think it came from France, but this artisan in France had come up with this beautiful design. It was a perfect fit for this shamanic drum that I had built, and when I go to travel, I can use that as a great carrying case, and it's a good reminder. And it feels like, it's really lightweight but strong, and is a good reminder of that hemp can be used in so many different ways as a useful product. So
I think you brought up a good point that it was made in France. I think as we've gone over the year, we've made a lot of different connections to different organizations and things like that. And one of the connections is a person that does hempcrete houses and stuff like that, and the majority of their hemp is sourced from France because they are so much further ahead than us in some of the science and stuff like that. So one of the things Transition Town talks about is that localization and that local economy thing. As part of this grant, there's other grantees that are out there under the same Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture grant, and one of them is Altogether Now PA. And I think we're going to be partnering up with them a little bit more to talk about what hemp can do as far as a local economy.
Right.
So the idea of we went to a hemp farm. It was an hour away. So this stuff does grow in Pennsylvania, and apparently
can be done.
Pennsylvania has a long history with hemp as a crop here. The fact that we have some rural areas and some urban areas in this state, gives us the ability to grow it and also to process it, and some of the processing that has to be done more in an urban area possibly. So we have this kind of utopia place here in Pennsylvania. I don't know if you know this, but I think on the back of one of the $10 bills back in, I want to say 1940, there was the picture was a hemp field, and it was made on hemp paper.
Yeah.
So speaking of hemp paper,
I've heard that. Yeah. The artist was from Pennsylvania.
Yes,
I think.
yes.
Yeah.
So there's all these interesting links back to the hemp plant, especially in Pennsylvania. And what I found in going to different conferences is there's so many organizations out there that are just right here that we could put together a microgreens hemp microgreens food supply chain. We could put together a supply chain of hemp flour mixture so that we can make breads and pastas and things like that. It's all right here.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of getting us all together, unified under this plant, all for good reasons, and go. That's kind of I think
Let's go.
That's where we're at. So I don't know where we're at time wise, but I think we're
I'm not sure
probably real close at the end here. All right. So my man's telling me 6 more minutes. So anything you want to talk about in this last 6 minutes?
Well, like I said, I think the Hemp Study Group is a great example of how initiatives under Transition Town can be used to really bring together community and connect us to nature and our environment. It's really doing both. One of the things that we're looking at, moving ahead with Transition Town is how do you scale? One thing that we want to do is provide kind of a healing environment, a healing culture for our community, and we also want to be building examples that other people can take and copy. And I certainly invite other groups around the country or around the world. They want to reach out, learn more about what we do in the Hemp Study Group, or learn more about what we're doing in Transition Town, Media. That would be, they'd be welcome to come and pick our brain on that. We're also looking at initiatives that allow us to scale. So how do we take this, kind of package it up and take it to the next level? There's an initiative that we've been talking about and talking to some of the founders of called Cool Cities. And the idea is that you take some of these changes that we're making and you do them block by block. And you start doing things like improving the way that you use energy in your household, or maybe the way that you interact with your waste stream and your recyclables and that kind of thing, so that you actually lower the amount. Zero waste is one of the working groups that we have in Transition Town Media.
I see an opportunity there for those things. What did you call them? Dunks, where you could, install this block by block. And I assume the more of these that go out in an area, the more efficient they're going to be in the overall.
Right. Well, you get sort of the benefit of scale. Right. Exactly.
So, something like that.
I know my wife thought that the dunks helped, but there were still too many mosquitoes. So I'm going to actually do 3 or 4 dunks around, sort of different pots around my property to try to eliminate those.
If you could get
but if
each
my neighbors were doing it, right, and the neighbors across the street were doing it.
Mosquito-free.
Yeah,
right?
we'd be mosquito-free, right.
Mosquito-free.
And then also getting rid of a lot of those harmful pesticides that are being sprayed that kill a lot of the pollinators.
And that's really, I think
keep it out of the soil, because all those things, they rolls down into the water, gets into our water table as well. Pesticides, that is. So we want to try to eliminate that as much as possible. So how do you start at the ground level and then work your way up? This is, join the movement, become, start a transition town in your community, and then look at how it can scale.
So like, how is Transition Town funded? Like, how do you go about, making these things happen?
We've really been very, very grassroots in terms of the way we've done funding over the years. The FreeStore, for example, the donation jar in the FreeStore used to be our leading source of income. And pre-pandemic, people used to come in. We were open, 5-6 days a week, and people would come in and they would just drop off. Now we still get money through the donation jar in the FreeStore, but it's not open as much. We've been sort of ramping up the reopening since the pandemic, but volunteers make donations, people in the community make donations. We have, and then in the past year we've been doing a little more structured, events and that kind of thing, where we can do some fundraising. Green Sunday, we run some raffle events, and where we have the artisans and the craftsmen come in and sell their wares. We have some baskets that we put together. The hemp basket was the big hit at Green Sunday. Had got more tickets for the hemp basket than any other basket, I think.
Again, it was more just so we had 10 baskets, and they were all wonderful, and I wanted to gauge a little bit about what is the pulse of what people think about hemp.
Right.
So we had about 500 people walk through the door, and so there was baskets of all different types, and there was hemp one, and it stuck out like a sore thumb. But lo and behold, more tickets went into that than any other.
A lot of interest.
So
and it raises the community awareness.
Me feel like what we were doing, either we made an impact already, or
right.
I wasn't fighting the tide anymore.
Right.
Like, okay, people were, and again, those items that were in there, they weren't, a bunch of, joints and things like that. They were body lotion and hemp towels
soap
and candles and things like that. So again, it opened people's eyes. It was amazing. We're standing there and like the looks that people, I didn't know,
right.
know, and it's just a matter of this is what our job is right now, is to teach people and let them know.
And I think as the popularity of the groups grow and, there's better awareness, we're looking at bigger projects. And then, things like this grant from the Department of Agriculture, portends how we might go about funding in the future. We might be able to get some more grants to do things like build common community spaces, or take, some time banking kind of systems where people have local economy, and continuing to invest in businesses, small businesses that need resources. So we see lots of opportunity for scale and maybe a little more formal fundraising, but it's been working really well from a grassroots perspective.
So last thing I want to discuss is, I believe it was last month, there was something called the Gratitude event that was
Right.
hosted down at the Media Community Center. I was there, was a participant and helped out with it, but it's the first time I've ever been to one of these. So you want to just tell us a little bit about, what that event was, because we're going to leave it, leave the podcast on a note of gratitude, and because I'm very thankful for this opportunity, and I think what Transition Town did in the gratitude event, really shows what they're all about.
Yeah, so the gratitude event really is something that one of our volunteers used to do many years ago, and it was really to give thanks to all the great organizations in our community who are doing good work, all kinds of work. And so we had nonprofits and community organizations come together. Unfortunately, that member of our group had passed, and so we hadn't done it for several years. And then one of our team members said, I'd really like to bring back the gratitude event. So we got together, organized that event, and really had a wonderful evening. I think we had, 100, 120 people who came. People brought potluck food in, and we also had some catered food. It was a great way to cross-connect with other groups that are doing good work in the community. And again, it gets back to that weaving of the root system, the mycelium,
right?
The community mycelium. That's our buzzword, and and you really felt it. I mean, really getting to know who some of the community leaders were, and the kind of work that they were doing. There's been a number of follow-up conversations that were sparked that evening, and it's the kind of thing that continues to give above and beyond that event. That's giving gratitude is an important part of what we do. So, and I appreciate you taking a leadership role in this and really leading us on this journey, on this adventure. I'm having a lot of fun, and if you're not having fun, why do it?
Why
Right?
do it, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I think that is the end of this portion of our journey. Until next time, hemp hooray.
Hooray. All right, buddy. Thank you.